The Greg Kelly Show.
But that does not relieve you from your responsibility for this material. Now, I'm waiting for reports from some of you. I'm not joking. This is my job.
That's Donald Sutherland in Animal House as the professor. I now know why Animal House made such an impression on me. Came out, I think, 79, maybe 79. I know now why. Full frontal nudity. The first time I had ever seen it in a movie. And it was shocking, a little bit thrilling, and wow. So the movie made an impression. And I don't know how I actually got to see that movie, but I remember seeing it in the movie theater. And Donald Sutherland, what else did we see? Yeah, we saw a lot. All right, so he's gone. Nothing anybody can do about it. Rest in peace. Great big long life. I will look back through his obituary. I'm always curious, really, the life journeys that people have, and you look. Many of them, maybe they know it, maybe they don't, but they were guided by God and given lucky breaks by God. Hey, look at this. Trump trails Biden by just single digits in New York. And it looks like he's getting a surge of support among black and Jewish voters. Trump is. Donald Trump is within striking distance of President Biden in a new poll of New York voters, with the former president boosted by big gains among black and Jewish Empire staters. I never called New York the Empire State. Do you? No, nobody does. In the election, if the election were held today, Biden would receive 47% of the vote to 39% for Trump. A Siena College poll found the poll's margin of error is 4.1%. That means the race could be even closer, and I think that's awesome. Wouldn't it be great? And you know what? If anything else, even if he doesn't win here, it means that Biden is going to have to compete here. We are going to win New York, the presumptive Republican nominee, 78, claimed at a May 23rd South Bronx rally. Remember that, where he courted black and Hispanic voters by arguing they were being badly impacted by record illegal immigration under Biden, as well as by economic issues such as high inflation. It's really awesome, And what do they say? Donald Trump is going places where Republicans typically did not go. And I think this election, it could really come through. He wants to be a president for all the people, What's going to happen at the debate? Nobody really knows. Nobody knows. It could go. I do have this little tidbit, although I think it could. I wouldn't write this down, but they're saying that they've negotiated at the debate. Donald Trump will have the last word. He'll be able to speak last. I guess that means Joe Biden speaks first. They were debating about the debate. Are they going to sit? Are they going to stand? I don't like the microphone trickery. I don't trust Jake Tapper or the other one, Donna Bash. Whatever happened to John King, by the way, at that place? Did you hear about the tallest kid in America? The tallest teenager. He's like almost 8 feet tall, and he's just finishing up high school. He's 18 years old. He's a pretty good basketball player. Right? I mean, he reminds me of Ming. Remember Yao Ming, the guy from China? He was like 7 foot 8 inches tall. Let's hear about Olivier. I don't know how to say his last name. Olivier Roy, and ESPN or something did a report on him. Listen to this.
For this week's Sports Star Spotlight, we're sending it to Joe McCann, who's in Florida with a young man who's quite literally one of the biggest prospects in the country. Hello, Joe.
This is Olivier Rioux. At 7 feet 7 inches tall, he is not just the tallest high school basketball player in the country. He is the tallest teenager in the world.
I was always the tallest the tallest around. I would say 4th grade. I was like taller than my teacher, taller than most, like 6th grade. I would hang out with the 6th grade because
Stop. He sounds like a giant would sound. He looks totally normal. He is he's super, super tall, but he's totally in proportion. If there's nobody standing next to him, he looks like a normal. It's interesting, but he certainly sounds like a giant. Keep going.
I'm taller than them.
Olivier, also known as Ollie, grew up in Montreal in Canada. Being so tall at a young age, it was only natural that he gave basketball a try. Now at over 7 feet, some things are easy, getting rebounds and blocking shots, for example. But other things are hard. dribbling, running, and just keeping your body in shape to play a full basketball game. That's why the young Canadian is now in Bradenton, Florida at IMG Academy to take advantage of its facilities and coaches to become the best version of himself.
The people, for me, are one of the best things about coming here at IMG. You have an unbelievable amount of resources here, people with a wealth of knowledge that have played the game at all different levels, at different backgrounds.
Is he going to go pro or what?
It's absolutely the best place in the world because each part of his day is filled with the highest level trained person.
Stop. It's too far into the report for them not to be talking about him going pro. All right. So, I mean, and a lot of it does happen. Guys they go right from high school to the pros. Sometimes they even leave. Can they leave high school? Can they leave high school and go to the pros? They used to do that, but they can't do it anymore. Well, remember that name. It could be Olivier. Well, remember his first name, Olivier. There are not too many NBA players called Olivier. If you're wondering, because, it's he happens to be white, Montreal, Canada, and 7 foot, 9 inches tall. We were talking about Donald Trump in jail. That looks very, very likely. I hear the fake news. They're saying it's not likely. One of the reasons they're saying that is they don't want the Trump team doing anything, working too hard to avoid that. I really think it's a little bit of a psychological operation. But check this out. Do you know objecting or accusing the Biden administration of politicizing, getting involved in this prosecution is, what do you think I'm going to say next? Racist. Yep, the latest thing for you to accuse Joe Biden of meddling in the prosecution of Donald Trump, you're a racist. Listen to this nonsense from the fake news, MSNBC. Go ahead.
Why would we think that Judge Merchan would give him any incarceration, right? So maybe he'll get some house arrest at Mar-a-Lago, but he's not going to be wearing an orange jumpsuit anytime soon.
So, Lisa, let's take this to you. Beyond the gag order, we're now less than a month until we get his sentencing, July 11th, just before the Republican National Convention. From what you know of the case, drawing upon your experience, what's your, it's understand that it's a guess and every case is different, but what should we expect in terms of a sentencing?
I actually am going to have to disagree with Dave here. I think there's a possibility that Trump gets some form of incarceration. Now, that incarceration, because of some of the logistical issues, could come in the form of something like a house arrest and not in a traditional incarceratory setting. But I think given the lack of remorse, there are a number of violations of the gag order that have not been brought to Judge Merchan's attention but happened on Journalist Watch during the trial. The district attorney's office may have made the decision it wasn't worth it at that stage to bring it to Merchan's attention. They wanted to see the trial through. They wanted it completed. They wanted a verdict. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to go to him during sentencing and say, look at all these other things that he did. Look at all these other things that he said. Mm-hmm. He doesn't take your word seriously. Nothing short of incarceration will be enough to get this guy to stop. Mm.
Lisa, you were in there and you watched this every step of the way and covered every detail for us. And I'm just curious, does Donald Trump, defendant, talk like someone who wants to avoid jail time? I'm just curious if he thinks it would even be politically helpful.
I think he thinks it might be politically helpful. I mean, certainly, Mika, the reporting has been that he wants to avoid jail at all costs, that he is very much scared of anything approaching incarceration. But from a political perspective, he believes that's political gold for him. If you look at the messaging, both during the trial and thereafter, he is definitely trying to rile up his base with the possibility of some form of term of incarceration. And in terms of how he's talking, he is continuing.
We're riled up enough as it is. All right. We are so ready. All right. I don't want him to go to jail. I hear that all the time. Oh, it's really going to help him. I mean, there are some people out there who will just be spooked by it. It's a bridge too far. Right. So I don't want him to go to jail. He may go to jail. I don't want it. It's not going to be a net positive, but this is where she goes really loopy and crazy. But unfortunately, it's not that crazy. This is what passes for commentary today on the fake news. Keep going.
To push a narrative that, as I've written and others have, is extraordinarily dangerous, tying the current president to the prosecution in Manhattan by somehow alleging that the Biden administration, and specifically the Department of Justice, was pulling Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's strings. How? Through a career civil litigator named Matthew Colangelo, who is part of the DA's team, but certainly not its head. For a variety of reasons, that narrative makes no sense. It is factually false, and it's also dangerously and perniciously racist because it assumes that DA Alvin Bragg, who is black, could not have executed this prosecution on his own without the supervision of a bunch of white elders.
That's the part, huh? Dangerously and perniciously racist. Wow. That will shut down a lot of people. A lot of people will stop talking after something like that, especially white people. Not me. It's funny. She makes these allegations, how it's factually incorrect. Well, but no, it's not. You just said it. Colangelo going from the DOJ to this case was wild, totally bizarre, outlandish. It doesn't happen. It never happens. He gave his 2-week notice to the DOJ on November 18th, the day that Jack Smith was appointed. It's insane. It's insane to think that Colangelo was not working at the behest of the DOJ. I do believe that Alvin Bragg, though, why he really okayed this, because he didn't at first, they got dirt on him. They have dirt on him, and I think I know what it is. He was alleged to have, behaved badly sexually with a woman he went to law school with, Harvard Law School. This is a story that numerous reporters knew about but would not publish in the lead up to his election. I wonder why they wouldn't. As Curtis Sliwa often says, his complexion is his protection. All right. Now, the race, to the extent that there's race at play here, it's to Alvin Bragg's benefit, not his detriment. OK, let me do this before I go. Max, hello. What do you want to say?
Yes, Greg, thank you for taking my call. Listen, I think that Adams, if he's thrown in jail, it's because he's not listening or following the commands of his handlers, like Frank Carone. I think what he's being told to do is to bring in more illegal aliens, which he doesn't want to do. But as I said, he's being forced by his superiors, like Frank Carone.
I mean, you're giving him too much credit. All right. Remember, he campaigned Sanctuary City. He pretended white supremacy was a thing when it wasn't. He's just along for the party. All right. This guy is totally incompetent and dirty. All right. Now, the way you portray it, it's like he wants to do the right thing and they're penalizing him for doing the right thing. That's not Eric Adams. Believe me, that's not Eric Adams. All right.
But he's under pressure.
Do you remember the news? Do you remember him greeting these buses with baskets? Welcome to New York. Here's a mini key to the city. Do you remember that? Because that happened. Remember him showing off all these stupid tents and stuff like that and the flood zones? And this guy wanted it. He encouraged it. He's just hapless. And back when he was borough president, it looks like he did a lot of bad stuff, and he's about to get arrested for that. All right? But the way you just described it, that he wants to do the right thing by the city, that is not Eric, and it never has been, Max. I'll be right back.
Greg Kelly.
Long Island is more exciting than ever at Jake's 58 Casino Hotel. Get ready to zoom into some serious cash with Zoom Ball every Wednesday in June. Win up to $500,000. 1 point equals 1 entry. 2 lucky winners will be drawn at the top of every hour from 1 to 5 p.m. to play Zoom Ball. Discover the excitement at Jake's 58 Casino Hotel.
If gambling is a problem for you or someone, please call the 24-hour toll-free helpline at 877-8-HOPE-NY or text NY.
Hey, it's Joe Piscopo. When you're looking for concrete materials for your next construction project, call Diamondback Ready Mix on Staten Island. This family-owned and operated business is the go-to supplier for concrete materials in New York, New Jersey, and the surrounding tri-state areas. My friends and experts from Diamondback Ready Mix are experts and fully licensed and insured in New York and in New Jersey to deliver ready-mix concrete to your job site. Give them a call today for more information at 718-650-5649, 718-650-5649.
This is the Greg Kelly Show.
So the Trump campaign and the Biden campaign, they got together, they flipped a coin. And the winner of the coin toss got to pick, I guess they had 2 coin tosses or whatever. I mean, let's see, Biden picks the podium position, which podium he wants. That indicates they're going to be standing up. That's good. And while Trump, they had another coin toss for who gets the last word at the debate. And, well, Trump wants the last word at the debate. They're treating this thing like it's a big, big deal, which it is. I don't like how it's on CNN, and all the other networks are going to have this like, oh, man, do we cover it? Do we not cover it? Do we take it? Do we not take it? CNN is allowing other channels to cover the whole damn thing with their commercial breaks, and they're insisting that you can't talk during the debate. Not that we would. I just don't think it's, well, Donald Trump did say anytime, any place, I'll debate Biden, so they're going to do it here. Now, a lot of people are saying this is kind of, forget us, forget the people. This is all about Joe, his performance, and is he going to be able to impress donors that he can make it to November? And if he is a weak showing, he'll be replaced before the convention or shortly after. This is more about him. We know that Donald Trump can survive these things. And he is ready for the debate. He doesn't have to cram. He doesn't have to, crash study. He's been doing this stuff. Remember the CNN town hall. Remember sitting down with Kristen Welker. Remember he's always out every single day. He's engaging reporters all the time. Joe Biden is in a little bubble. He's a precious little guy. And if anything happens, if anything goes, that happens to presidents. It didn't happen to Trump because he kept engaged. They talk about the bubble. Remember, this guy was on top of everything. I remember Chris Cuomo got into remember that whole thing with Fredo? Remember, somebody called him Fredo? The Fredo is the N-word to Italians. And I was like, what happened to Chris Cuomo? What was, anyway. So what happened then? Oh, yeah. He got into that big fight, big argument. And then like 10 seconds later, Trump was like, what Chris Cuomo did was disgusting. And it was just so interesting that he knew about it. He knew about it. He knows what's trending. He knows what's hot. He knows what people are talking about. And believe it or not, at the time, people were talking about Chris Cuomo and what he did. Mary, you want to say something about Donald Sutherland?
Yeah, yes, Greg. Donald Sutherland starred in MASH. He played Hawkeye Pierce. That was, I think, his most famous role of all time.
Well, it's a very old movie. That's a very old movie. That came out even before, MASH the series, which I think came out in 1973. That's an ancient movie now, right?
Yeah, but still, I think it's one of his most famous roles. He also was in a movie called Clute.
Yeah, I know. I mentioned Clute. Yeah. The thing about MASH is there's something odd about that movie, which I tried to watch. I think what makes it so different, because you think it's going to be like the TV show, because we knew the TV show. Some of us knew the TV show before the movie. I know what it is. The movie doesn't have a laugh track. That's it. And the movie at times isn't really even funny or even trying to be. Right, Mary? A little bit?
It wasn't as funny as the TV show, that's for sure.
Yeah. What else did he do? I don't know. I mean, these guys, it's funny. They have a little spot in all of our brains if you're famous enough. Who are the famous actors of today? Who are the famous actors of today? Name an actor who's gotten famous in the past 5 years. Can anybody name a new actor who's become famous, household name famous in the 5 years? Name another actor, Mary, a big famous actor.
For today, I would have to say Ryan Reynolds.
He's been famous for about 15 years, though. There's nobody. It's interesting. There's nobody. Maybe Hemsworth, but they've been around now for 10 years. It's interesting. We're not going to have giant movie stars, giant famous people. It's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a thing.
You're listening to The Greg Kelly Show.
Another suspicious thing about the CNN debate, it's going to be in Atlanta. Now, Atlanta used to be CNN Central, but they do hardly anything out of Atlanta anymore. Why is it in Atlanta? Like 95% of their programming comes out of New York and Washington, D.C. I don't trust these people. And the other thing is, it's usually, remember, they have it at a university, Hofstra. Every 4 years, Hofstra has the great big debate. And the Presidential Debate Commission, which I do not like, they're thoroughly corrupt as well. And there's always some total disaster that happens at every single one. The moderator loses control, something horrible happens. But what's going on at Hofstra lately? Hofstra University, people getting stabbed all over the place. Cut one, please. Cut one.
Breaking news just into Eyewitness News about that stabbing at Hofstra University on Long Island. It's worse than we thought. 5 masked men said to have attacked a high school graduation procedure.
Yeah, we can't even imagine something like this on a day that should be celebratory. It was the end of the graduation ceremony at the Academy Charter High School that was happening here at Hofstra University's David S. Mack Sports and Exhibition Complex when 5 masked men attacked a guest of the ceremony. A student attempted to intervene, and the result was that the guest was stabbed in the leg, a student stabbed in the ear. Both of them have been taken to a local hospital. Unclear at this point if anyone is in custody, but again, 5 masked men coming up on these 2 people at the graduation just as the commencement ceremony was ending. I should mention that we understand that this all originated as a domestic dispute that spilled over into a very public setting.
A domestic dispute. I want to know more. 5 guys put masks on. Okay, we're going to go get him we're going to go stab him as he sits in the crowd with 2,000 witnesses. That's where we're going to strike. That's just not a good thing. A domestic incident. All right, then why'd you put the masks on? It's just, wow. I have a feeling, actually, there's a gang aspect. There might be a gang aspect afoot. Can anyone describe to me or figure out for me what the deal is with Stephen A. Smith? Is he smart or stupid? Is he conservative or liberal? He adopts this. All I can really see when he talks is that scowl on his face, right? Every time he talks. It takes him about 2 years to make the point. I've noticed that, right? So, Rich, what do you make of this guy? What is he? Huh?
I'd say he's kind of middle of the road. When it helps him, he's conservative. When it doesn't, he's liberal.
Self-serving, right? And
yes.
He picks and chooses, and it's all about him. That kind of jibes with my general gist, but I can't tell. I honestly can't tell. So let's see here. Cut 17, please. Stephen A. Smith. Check this out. Oh, then make it the other one. Just tell me what the deal is. If you don't have it, you don't have it. We'll move on from him. No? All right, let's try cut 18 then.
As much as people may have been abhorred by Donald Trump's statement weeks ago, talking about how black folks, he's hearing that black folks find him relatable because what he's going through is similar to what black Americans have gone through. He wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. When you see the law enforcement, the court system, and everything else being exercised against him, it is something that black folks throughout this nation can relate to with some of our historic, iconic figures. We've seen that happen throughout society. So no matter what race, what ethnicity you may emanate from, we relate to you when you're suffering like that because we know we have. And that's what he articulated.
Yeah, there's a point to that. I don't know. But if you buy into that, what he's buying into, well, the system is corrupt and racist and all that stuff. I don't buy into that. However, the system does, more black people are, as a proportion of the population touched by the criminal justice system than white people. Although the numbers don't vary as much as you might think, as some people might think. They're actually very, very close. All right. So fair point. Cut 19, please.
I'm fully aware that I've been in the news over the last few days, paraded all over social media as well, after comments I made during my appearance on Fox News' Hannity last week with the one and only Sean Hannity himself. And I'm fully aware of the outcry that has ensued because of it. A lot of folks in Black America seem pretty pissed at me right now from friends and loved ones to colleagues, contemporaries, and dare I say, even the NAACP itself.
Stop.
Quite a few folks
Stop.
were put off, if not flat out.
I see what you mean about this guy being self-serving. He makes the point, then he comes back and tries to, And you know what he's talking about, by the way? Who's giving him a hard time? Black Twitter. There's such a thing called Black Twitter. It's very, very left, and it's very, very online. But the people, the folks, I don't think they really care. And to the extent they do, they're not giving him a hard time. But a lot of folks overreact when institutions start giving you a hard time. Just roll with it. Doesn't matter. But I think this is the way to keep it all going. But I am curious where this goes. Keep going, please.
Quite a few folks were put off, if not flat out offended, after my words were interpreted as associating support for Trump from the black community with all the legal issues he's facing. For that, I sincerely apologize.
What? Oh, man. My instincts were right about this guy. He's not to be trusted. All he's got is that mean face. He apologized for that? He apologized. And it wasn't like if you were offended, I apologize to those who were offended. And I can't stand that kind of apology, by the way. But he just abjectly apologized. Wow. Does he redeem himself? Then again, look, if you genuinely harm somebody, I'm all for apologizing. There are too many people who, will not apologize. They think apologizing is a sign of weakness. I don't actually think so. And forgiveness. You don't hear enough forgiveness and apologies, right? You don't. All right, let's keep going. I want to just take this to the end. That's it? All right. Well, we got another one. And I'm told this is vintage Stephen A. Smith. Like vintage, like this is what he's all about. Cut 17, please.
She is a white young lady. And she's been a magnet.
Talking about
in a way
Caitlin Clark
that has benefited the league in ways that others have not. No matter how far we believe that we have advanced as a society, there's still such a long way to go, because in the end, if you're white, you're bright, you're right, and as a result, the shine comes your way in the eyes of a lot of people in America. You have somebody that's a presidential candidate. What is his claim to fame? Make America great again. What have people interpreted that to mean? Make America white again.
That's your problem. I'm thoroughly unimpressed, by the way. That's the biggest exposure I've ever had is Stephen A. Smith. And would anybody say that Donald Trump's claim to fame is make America great again? That's his claim to fame? He was famous before anybody ever heard about MAGA or make America great again. And it takes him a year and a half to make the point, too. All right, put him on my list. He is banned from this show. All right? I don't want him calling. Okay. What is it, Ralph? Hello.
Greg, Donald Sutherland was a fine actor. And you're talking MASH before, a tremendous film. Much darker than the TV series, much darker, and very interesting how they transitioned to a rather lighthearted TV series. And then, as you saw, the storyline get a little bit more serious and serious as the series progressed. Is a fantastic actor, though. He you mentioned Ordinary People, 1980 Academy Award winner, Robert Redford's first film directing, and Sutherland made that film. Mary Tyler Moore got an Academy Award. Timothy Hutton was fantastic. Judd Hirsch was on all right,
hey, easy. Jeffrey Lyons, what's going on with you in the movies? I had no idea. Well, you really are into this stuff, huh?
Well, you want the info, I'll give it to you. The whole thing about Sutherland being a big lefty.
Yeah. I never knew that. Whoa. I never perceived him as political. Is he political? Was he political?
He was very much involved in his younger days with some very, very left-wing causes. Very tight with Jane Fonda in the early days.
Yeah, they were in that movie together, Clute.
Yeah, they made friends during that film.
Oh, they made friends. They made friends. All that time together in the trailers. That's one of the reasons why Hollywood people divorce and marry, because they number one, they got to kiss each other at work, and then they hang around in those trailers. What's your final word on Donald Sutherland?
Well, it's a strange thing with movies. When you get close to somebody, it's a strange set of circumstances. The whole thing with Sutherland is that he was always a thing called Day of the Locust. I want you to check that out if you have time. That's his finest work. He was underrated his entire career, and he really when he shined, it wasn't because he was the lead character. He kind of was blending in beautifully. That was his strong point.
Underrated for his entire career. He was working his entire career. That's the whole trick of these careers, right? And I'm looking through it. He didn't have too many. Actually, he did have a few gaps. That's the thing. Hey, you know so much about movies. How do these actors handle the big spaces between projects? What is that like for them? Do you know? I mean, what do they?
There's an elite group that they always have been made. They're getting calls all the time. They're getting projects all the time. And then there are people like us who suffer. We're middle of the road.
Oh, are you an actor?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think even the big guys. It goes for a while, and the phone doesn't ring, or they become too old or whatever. But you go through that. So what's it like for you? What do you do between gigs?
Well, now, I'm kind of out of it. And unfortunately, just because of circumstances, I taught acting for a long time because it's very difficult to get work. But, as everything else, COVID, that dreaded COVID, it destroyed the business. Everything was done in person, mostly. There are things online and things that, you do on screen, but everything was done in person. After that fiasco 4 or 5 years ago, it's changed drastically, and you don't even know, which end is up half the time if you're trying to pursue this craft.
Well, what do you mean? Like, so you got to audition now on Zoom? What's the big deal? What's wrong with that?
It's a little ridiculous. You have when you're in the room with somebody, there's an aura. An actor steps on stage or steps in front of a camera, and he she either has it or she doesn't have it. He doesn't have it. You can't perceive that on a screen. You can just see that in person. When they cast people, Greg, as soon as the guy walks in the room, they're usually cast or not cast. It's not about the audition as much as the way you walk in and the way you carry yourself.
Wow. Man, I quite frankly would hate that life. It feels like your destiny is in somebody else's hands,
You always have to have a side game. And, I always had a side game. But, you love it. If you love it, Greg, you can't do anything else. You have to have that passion, and you have to do it. If you question yourself and you don't know if this is for you, it probably isn't. But if you have that passion, that driving need, then it's a whole different ballgame, and then you have to pursue it.
What was your side hustle?
I was a personal trainer. I worked in health clubs. I teach acting. I also did some radio gigs. But acting on stage is the ultimate. If you're in front of a live audience, Greg, and you get that live response, it's a rush that you can't imagine.
Don't you get bored doing the same show every night?
Well, that's the thing. You have to make it new every night. If you're doing 8 shows a week, and each and every show, you have to perceive that whole situation a little differently. You can't just say, "Well, this worked last night, so tonight I'm going to do it the same way as last night." It just doesn't work that way.
I know, but how much leeway do you have? I mean, there's a script, and the other person's going to say their line, so you don't have all that much room to wiggle, right?
Well, it's called the method. It's creativity. You go in there and every night is different. You feel different. Yesterday when you did your show, you probably didn't feel the same way you feel today. And the show's going to go differently.
Well, the thing about my stuff is, we're talking about different things every day, and that the news changes. And, I'm not complaining, but it's like, you guys have a script and you got to deliver the same story. It's the same story every night. Look, you guys are artists. You know how to do it. I am in awe, although I don't like Broadway very much. The seats are too small. Too long a line to get snacks, and too expensive, and I can't figure out what they're saying on stage half the time. Can you get them to slow down? Have you ever noticed that? Seriously, they talk way too fast. Have you ever noticed that?
Well, they're drilled into them. They drill them pace, and pace is a lot of baloney if there's no substance. You have to be able to seize the moment. and you can't just fly by very crucial moments of the text. Say you're doing Shakespeare, and you're approaching the climax, the ultimate, the pinnacle. You can't just fly through it as though you're talking nothing. You have to embrace that moment.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. But boy, oh boy, I've never made it through a Shakespeare play. I mean, talk about somebody who's overrated. I know I sound ignorant right now, but I mean, I can't figure that stuff out. The thee and the thou and the art thou, and it's a pain in the neck. I mean, Ralph, I'm not 100% wrong, right?
You know when it's great, Greg? When you see a Shakespearean actor who could bring it to life.
No, it's not great. You know who I saw do that once? Patrick Stewart. And I'm like, this sucked, period. I don't care Patrick Stewart or, it wasn't for me. I personally think almost any movie is better than a Broadway show. Granted, look, that's me. It's not everybody. Thank God we have Broadway. I would die for the arts, Ralph. Thank you very much. Very insightful, really. I enjoyed talking to you. I got to go. I'll be right back.
Greg Kelly. This is the Greg Kelly Show.
We're back, and fortunately, there was not as much Juneteenth violence as there was last year. I think there were only a couple of dozen homicides. Last year, we had pretty close to 100, I think, coast to coast. James O'Keefe is a great man. Journalist. He was with Project Veritas, and then there was some drama there. I don't know what happened, but he's got his new O'Keefe Media thing going, and it's great. And they go undercover, and they went undercover at Disney, and they got some executives to say, well, what we all know is happening, but it's really something to hear it from a Disney executive's mouth. Go ahead.
Certainly, there have been times where, there's no way we're hiring a white male person.
Just kind of unspoken.
There are times when it's spoken, but
how would they say it?
There's no way we're hiring a white male person. They say
like straight to you, or okay?
Yeah. They'd be very careful how they message that to agents.
According to these videotapes, Disney blatantly discriminates against white men in particular.
Wow, and they got senior vice presidents telling them this stuff. Wow, good stuff. Watch out what you say. You think you're just having a drink with a friend. Good chance. They work for James O'Keefe. Got to get out of here. Carmine, hi.
Hey, Greg, you mentioned the Ten Commandments. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus raises the stakes, and the Pharisees are trying to trip him up. And he always wanted to mess with their minds. And
so he said, they asked him, what is the most important commandment, right?
That's right. To love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is to love your neighbor as yourself. But he raises the stakes, and he says, if you look at a woman with lust in your heart, you commit adultery. It's a high bar. It's a high bar.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, yeah, and we're sinners. I mean, that's almost impossible to do. I mean, for me, not. I'd rather not talk about it, but you know what I mean.
I do. And you know what? Back to Donald Sutherland. I was 12 years old in 1973. He released a film, Don't Look Now, and it was on HBO. It was on every night, and you wanted to tune in. That was a weird show, man. Back in 1973.
I didn't know they had HBO back then. I got to check that out. Okay. Thank you very much, Carmine. Susan.
Hello, Greg.
Hi.
No, I was going to say, but it was already mentioned that a movie I really liked of his was Ordinary People because of its depth and how well they all acted. And it was not Mary Tyler Moore or Sutherland who won Oscars. It was Timothy Hutton, and he was very young. He was only maybe 20-ish. And, of course, Redford got one, and it got Best Picture. But Redford must like that theme because it was like the favored son dies, and he repeated that kind of theme, and a river runs through it, like a decade later.
I don't think Mary Tyler Moore would mind me saying that she had an affair with Robert Redford during the making of that movie. Did you know that?
You know, I've heard that too. And another thing you said that I totally agree with.
What?
I mean, there are no movies now and no movie stars. I couldn't think of a one in 5 years.
I know. And remember going to ordinary people, like adults, not big action movies for 17-year-olds? We were better back then. Sorry.
This is Greg Kelly for Priority Gold. What does it mean to be America's precious metals dealer? It means that you're in touch with the hearts and minds of those who love this country, value our freedom, and want to protect the future. Priority Gold is that precious metals dealer. They've helped thousands of Americans back their retirement with solid gold and silver. Call Priority Gold at 888-506-6439. Receive free shipping, free storage, a free investment guide, and one of the best purchase experiences in the industry. Call now or go to PriorityGold.com.